Okay, welcome back from the break. Still watching The Morning Rush here on Metro Television. It's time for us to talk. And this morning, I'm so blessed, super blessed, to have some beautiful women join me on the show. If you wake up early in the morning as a man, Kiki, stop that. Anyway, so we're going to talk about cervical cancer. Last week, one of them was here, Dr. Eva Vera Tetefio, and this one, she's been joined also by Dr. Erica Ntema-Mensah there from the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, and they're joining me this morning. So we talk about cervical cancer. Been talking about the fact that it's one of the things that has been worrying women, cancers that have been worrying women in this country in particular. So good morning and welcome. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Now the chilling is over. The chilling is over officially. We've started work for 2020. We've not been chilling.
Oh, do we chill?
We don't.
We still work regardless.
24/7.
Doctors, you don't chill.
Well, not really. Like how people want to chill,
Okay.
but we try and have fun.
So your fun is just what?
We have our own kind of.
That must be really boring.
We try to make it interesting.
Anyway, so last week we began a conversation on cervical cancer. So, Doc, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
Let me start. So both of you are doctors. So let me start with Dr. Erica.
Yes.
So I just want you to give us a recap, or we've heard from her last week. Want to hear from you also. Anything that you want to let us know about cervical cancer, the basics of it.
Okay. So cervical cancer is basically cancer of the cervix. Okay. In the body, when cancer happens at any part of the body, it is named after that part. So there's ovarian cancer, there's cervical cancer, and then the cervix is, in plain terms, the neck of the womb, the neck of the uterus. So when cancer or abnormal changes in cells happens in that region of the cervix, we call it cervical cancer. And this is a cancer that is predominantly, it's only women that have a cervix.
Yeah.
So it's a cancer that occurs in women. And it is the only cancer that can be said to be a sexually transmitted cancer in certain terms, because it is caused by HPV, which is the human papilloma virus that is transmitted through sexual contact. So that is the kind of cancer that cervical cancer is. It is slow growing and it is slow progressing. So it is not something that you notice early. It's something that you notice after several years. That's why we are advocating for early detection, pap smears, and vaccination, and also a change in lifestyle to reduce the risk factors. So that's what I have to say about cervical cancer.
That's all great. Dr. Eva, she's also mentioned the part that it could be transferred. And I've been thinking about it. A lot of people that you interact with in the hospital who come to you, if you're to rate their knowledge about this cancer, how would you rate them?
I think there isn't much knowledge and awareness with respect to cervical cancer. The reason why we are now trying to create more awareness for people to know that it's something that is going on. Like Dr. Ntema-Mensah already said, it's insidious. 15 to 30 years, you won't even know there's anything going on. And if you're that's for those who have an intact immune system. Okay. For those who have a little defect in their immune system because probably they have HIV or they are taking certain medications that kind of brings down their immune system, within 5 years, they could start getting the symptoms of cervical cancer. Okay. So for you with an intact immune system, everything is well, you probably just have maybe multiple sexual partners, or you don't practice safe sex, or you're smoking or something along those lines, you could have it showing after 30 years. So imagine you've been intimate with someone from age 9, and then when you are 30, you start having the symptoms of cervical cancer, which is it's not even pre-malignant lesion. Cervical cancer, that's the abnormal bleeding after sex, foul vaginal odor, and you have pelvic pain during sex. Or you realize that now, like I told you last week, if you go to other parts of the body, you start to experience the symptoms from those parts of the body. Until it gets there, you really would not know.
So it's like you'll be there one day, you wake up, and
then you start experiencing the symptoms. It's not something like, let me say, in layman's terms, most of us know malaria, where you would have your fever, you start having those. In the early stage.
Wow.
It takes up to 30 years for people with an intact immune system. And if you're not screening, you're not doing the right things, you would never know there's anything like that going on.
What is it with the cervix area that this cancer has to get in there? There needs to be something like, why is the cervix area in particular for this particular cancer? Why does it happen there?
Okay, so with the cervix, there's what we call the transitional zone. So there are different cell types in the body, and there are different cell types at every single part of our body. Now, transitional zone, because the cells that move from the vaginal area into the cervix changes when it gets into the cervix. So that zone has that unique feature that enables that thing to be, that changes to occur. Okay. So any repeated or prolonged infection with it at that zone will just predispose. It's just a predilection to that cervical cancer for that side, and that's the only place it would occur at. Not in any other part of the cervix, but just along the transitional zone.
Okay, and that's when the HPV thing you mentioned,
yes,
comes in, the human papilloma
virus. Yes. So with HPV, there are different types of HPV. We have those that cause genital warts, and then we have those that cause the cervical cancer. But then there's no selection as to this person is going to give me HPV that will cause warts, this person is going to give me HPV that will cause cervical cancer. So the important thing is just to reduce your risk, and also to vaccinate, and also to screen from time to time. Because there's this whole slogan that's all around, early detection saves lives. Early detection truly saves lives. Because as Dr. Tetefio said, there's no way for you to know that, oh, I have cervical cancer, or I'm going to get cervical cancer. It is something that, she used the big term, insidious. It's something that takes a long time before it will manifest in the body. That's why we are always advocating for screening and then vaccination. So
with the screening bit, how is it done? How do people get screened, or get to know that this is what I have?
Okay, so with screening, we do a screening called the pap smear. We are right now in Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. So I'm sure if you go to any of the public health facilities, if you go to all the health facilities that are around, those that are close to you, and you tell them that you want to come and screen for cervical cancer, it is always available and it is always open. But I think that the reason people do not do that is they are not aware that there is even something like that. They are not aware that you should go out and then you should go and get screened. So that's why we are here talking about it. Okay. Yeah.
And the pap smear bit. Yeah. Okay, well, because this is the awareness month, maybe it's free, because I think I must have heard that it was quite expensive. So there are various screening modalities. We have the visual inspection with acetic acid, which you normally do in a low research setting like our country. And with that one, there's a position you would have to take, and then they would apply acetic acid or vinegar to your cervix, and then we wait for changes. So if you have a normal cervix, there's a way it's supposed to look. And when there are precancerous lesions on your cervix, there's a way the cervix will look. And when you actually have it, the cervical cancer, started in the early stage, there's a way it also will look. So aside the VIA, we also have the pap smear. So with pap smear, they'll take samples of the cells from the cervix, and then they would go and look at it under the microscope. So that takes a bit of time as compared to the VI, which will give you the instant result. But there's an added one now, which is the pap smear, or the pap smear with the HPV DNA. So with that one, we are looking for the particular HPV strain that causes cervical cancer. The high-risk ones that we know are notorious are type 16 and 18. So usually when you do the pap smear with the HPV DNA, which we now advocate for, it's able to tell whether you have those strains which can cause cervical cancer or not. With the cost, it's a little expensive. Because like last week when we spoke about it with Dr. Thibault, and we are now trying to get it onto the National Health Insurance to help reduce the cost. So currently there isn't a lot of subsidy in that regard from the government. So it's relatively expensive. But then if you can't afford to do the HPV DNA with the pap smear, you can always do the VIA. And it's actually, you get the result instantaneously. And then if there's a need for them to go ahead and probably look at your cervix and then do either a surgical debridement or do freeze, there are various treatment modalities. They'll know which one to do for you. And the data, as I've been trying to get here, this is from August 2022, says that the current estimates indicate that every year 2,700 97 women are diagnosed with cervical cancer, and 1,699 die from the disease in the country. And it is the second leading cause of cancer in women in Ghana after breast cancer. Last week you were telling me that it is when people start having, or young ladies start having sex, that is when they that's right.
So you become exposed.
Exposed to it.
Yes. So there are risk factors. So risk factors, there's what we call early coitus, that's early age of having sex.
Okay.
And these days, like, you know, last week Dr. Sibo was saying that in Africa or Ghana, for instance, we pretend like sex is forbidden to talk about. And I think sometimes it's the reason why people can walk to the health center and say that, okay, I want to be screened for A, B, and C. But then in countries where they know it's happening, you can walk in and they actually encourage you. There's a program for you to go and get screened. So when you start having sex from a tender age, the body can, so if there's a pattern it goes through. It can move from your normal cervix to go to HPV infected, to a pre-malignant cervix, and then to cervical cancer. Now the cervix will move from HPV infected to pre-malignant, and then it can go back to your normal cervix, because 90% of the time the body is able to clear them. Unfortunately, for like 10% of the time, when there's repeated infection, the body cannot clear it, and then it can move from pre-malignant cancer, when no treatment has been done, to cervical cancer.
So that means that we really need to get the education to the junior high schools, the senior high schools, for them to understand these things, because whether I want to cover it or not, it happens for that side. It's happening there.
Yeah, so the education is really important and is paramount, because all the risk factors, almost all the risk factors, have to do with personal habits. Okay, so early coitus, as Dr. Tetefio said, which is early exposure to sex, is one of the risk factors. Multiple sexual partners is also another risk factor. And then habits that reduce one's immunity, like smoking. Research even shows that people with bad dietary habits that are not able to sustain their immune system, this can all be risk factors for cervical cancer. So screening as well as education is what is going to save us and bring our mortality rates down. And it has been achieved in certain countries like Norway, where education has been done. Education is done in young girls, in schools, in churches. It is not taboo. And it's not something that people shy away from. So I believe that through your medium and then other media, we'll be able to reach the targets of the young people, because if you target the young people, you'll be able to eradicate this, if not totally eradicate, you'll be able to bring down the mortality rates in this disease.
So all you have to do is to get vaccinated.
Okay, so first of all, we would like that, the risk factors, that you will work on that. Okay. Then we would like for vaccination, because although we are advocating that this and this can expose you to cervical cancer, we will not be able to catch everybody in that bracket. So then vaccination is very important. After vaccination, screening. It's constant screening. And then we are good to go.
Okay, so if you just join us, we're having a discussion on cervical cancer. I've got Dr. Eva Vera. Eva Vera Tetefio, and also Dr. Eric and Temo Mensah from the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. We're talking about cervical cancer because January is the awareness month for cervical cancer, and we want to slash down the numbers, want to educate a lot more people so they could get, as she's saying, the vaccination they can come later, but let's reduce the risk factors and all the other things. Last week you mentioned the ones about the gentleman also. Yeah. I want you to give us another one. Those who missed last week, just recap that for us.
Okay, so cervical cancer, it happens with women because women are the only gender with cervix. Men don't have cervix, so there's no way they can get cervical cancer. And before I even recap, we want to, the Medical Women's Association of Ghana want to appreciate Leicester Ghana for their constant support to us in reaching out to certain communities to be able to give them healthcare and all that. Last week, I remember I mentioned that men are also at risk of getting not cervical cancer, but penile or anogenital warts. Reason is HPV has over 200 strains. And these 200 strains, we have the high-risk ones and then the low-risk ones. Now, for the high-risk ones, they cause cervical cancer in women. But then they could also cause penile cancer in men. The low-risk ones could cause both anogenital warts in both men, anogenital warts in both men and women. So men shouldn't think because they don't have a cervix, they are like safe like that.
And
You are
they
not
good to go.
Exactly, you are not so safe. Just practice safe sex.
Okay.
Because when you meet anyone and you want to have a sexual escapade with the person, there's nothing written on the person that this person has cervical cancer or not. Or this person has the strain that causes cervical cancer or not. There's nothing that says that this gentleman has the strain that causes anogenital warts or has the strain that causes cervical cancer. You can never tell. So just protect yourself. Practice safe sex. That's the underlining. If you don't want to abstain, just practice safe sex.
Practice safe.
Yeah.
Okay, and
stick to one partner. Don't be monkey branching like a friend of mine will say.
Okay, that one you are safe with it.
Just so both partners to be faithful. Don't go about having bad sex with so many people.
Okay, so the men can also vaccinate.
Of
when
course, I spoke last week. WHO admonishes that from age 9 due to 12, 14, they should all get vaccinated.
Okay. So my my guys, please go and get vaccinated, okay? You never know. And abstain. If you can't abstain, do one. If you can't do one, protect yourself. Very, very important. So we're going to wrap up on this conversation in a few minutes. So next week, don't be bad. We get to talk about the treatment and everything. But but do people work in? And do you have people working like I want to check? Does that happen?
It happens. So I did a rotation in the family planning department of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, and I was very impressed. I think more women are becoming aware of their bodies and aware of the diseases that are predisposed to women. So people do walk in. They walk in, I want to do a pap smear. They walk in, I want to screen for cervical cancer, and it's very impressive. So we wish that more women would be empowered about their health, because health education, if you do not know that certain diseases can happen to me, I have to protect myself from certain things as a woman, you wouldn't even have the ability to go to a hospital and say, let me screen. Exactly. So I was very impressed. A lot of women came in and then they screened for cervical cancer.
But they come in alone, not with their daughters.
So like, in Ghana, my daughter is not having sex.
Yes.
So they would think that there's the need, and maybe sometimes I think parents are not so open for their children to also talk to them
about
exactly. So
things like that.
I mean, if a parent doesn't know, there's a low probability that the child may also know if she doesn't have, she's not exposed to these kind of information, and like your outfit is not given as the platform to come and educate women on cervical cancer, educate the public on cervical cancer. So yes, not only mothers should go and get screened for cervical cancer. If you've got daughters, sisters, house helps, please take all of them. Let them get screened. If the HPV DNA with the pap smear is expensive, you can always do the VIA. It's economical, and you can get that done. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there you have it. Please, my men out there, make sure that you have your sisters go, your wives go, your girlfriends go, your mothers, Asa, your
aunties,
I didn't hear the side
your
chick
uncles.
I didn't hear your aunties. Yeah, let them go check. For cervical cancer, very, very important. It looks like people are like that. Ghanaians are like that. Oh, as a year you be then finally it gets to someone closer to you, and that is when you take it serious. So I thank you very much, Dr. Eva Vera Tetefiu, and also Dr. Eric Ntiamwa Mensah from the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. So that's it for today. But of course, it was a long weekend. I enjoyed every bit on social media, from McMill to something I was trying on social media also. Mention your age without actually mentioning your age. That's like, remember something from the past that nobody or a lot of people may not remember. You got anything like that?
I lay my love on you. It's all I want.
So you're part of the people who are buying the books with the lyrics in there.
Exactly, I'm writing them out.
Okay. What about you?
For me, it's Juvita. I don't see it around again.
True, Juvita. That'll be for the. We used to do the refresh. Yeah, refresh. Juvita is true that'll be here. So that's been trending on social media. I think what did I post? I posted Dr. Mensah Otabel's preaching the song. Yeah, something like that. And a lot of people have been bashing Sonia Chiba because apparently Money. That song is somebody's song in India. Anyways, so that's it for today. Many thanks for joining us here on The Morning Rush. My name is Desmond Okreku, as you can call me Desi Fading the Star. I'm back tomorrow, same time, 5:30 a.m. through to 7:30 a.m. Big shout out to the production team.